gentlemen, happy Thursday, happy Monday, happy whatever day we decide to publish this, because today I have good news for you on whatever day of the week this is. Generative AI. You've heard about it. What is it? Excellent question. Rhetorical, because I'm just sort of talking to myself. I set out on a little bit of a journey 3, maybe 4 months ago. I wanted to go and learn from people that were utilizing generative AI, that were using machine learning, that were using artificial intelligence, and to get them to educate me, but also educate you in the process. I tried to limit myself just to whoever would say, yes, and that they would be compelling speakers. Those are the only 2 criteria that I had, that they would be entertaining and that they would be insightful. I wanted to make sure I got perspectives from healthcare, which we've probably already heard a few times in this video cast, given that I'm from Kansas City. I wanted to get insights from people in defense, in every field that I could. But there was one field, specifically from the law. Yes, you heard it right, the law. They didn't want to talk to me for whatever reason. Maybe I'm sketchy. Maybe they thought I was actually a hologram. I'm not quite sure. We'll never know. But one person, for you all, was very lucky, that did agree to come talk to me today. Mr. Douglas Pestana, the Chief Technology Officer and Chief Data Scientist. What's going on, Douglas? How's it going?
Hey, Zach. Going well. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm the CTO and Chief Data Scientist at a company called LegalMente. So just trying to give some insights here on AI and the legal space. Of course, my background is not in law. I'm not a lawyer. I've been working in AI and data science for past 14 years. And I've worked in so many verticals. I've been working in casinos, credit cards, B2B, e-commerce retailer. So this really is when I co-founded this startup, it would be the first time that I'm applying AI in law. So there's a lot of things to learn, just both about the industry, who's utilizing these tools. So this definitely was a learning curve, but I've learned so much. And my business partner, Jose Padilla, he's a lawyer based in San Antonio, Texas. He's the currently serves as the CEO and co-founder of LegalMente AI, is a lawyer. So we do have that legal expertise on our side, and I bring in the AI side. So that's the dream team right there. We're building a legal AI startup using both sides of the equation. So that's where we're at.
Very cool. Very cool. And just for the record, I'm not a lawyer either. Although I never took the LSAT. So I'm definitely not a lawyer in any
Yeah.
respect. And because the lawyers told me to do this, which they didn't, but I just always have to do it. The views and opinions expressed in this program are the views and opinions of its participants and do not reflect either their employers or any trade organizations. It's just 2 guys, 2 people that are interested in a field, and we just happen to be talking on the internet. We just happen to hit the record button while we did it. So to get us started out, kind of to set the stage for it, if we imagine there's a Venn diagram, because I'm a visual person, I like Venn diagrams. One circle is law, is legal tech. The other side of it is artificial intelligence. And there's the overlap there is where I think you come in, where you can provide some insights. So what are some of the things that the intersection between law and AI that you're really excited about? What are some of the things that you think about at LegalMente? What are some of the things that just the field writ large thinks about? What are some opportunities that are there to save both parties, both the attorney as well as the client, money, while still keeping everything in mind, like data privacy and security? Just lay it on me, Douglas. Give me what you know. Give me what you got.
Yeah, the first thing that I knew about going into this, and this idea came maybe about 2 years ago, but we didn't really get investment funding until late last year. So we had enough time to really think about the problem with the law. Any type of legal application, it's a lot of text data. It's a lot of documents. It's a lot of playbooks. It's a lot of contracts. So we had that going for us. Maybe 5, 10 years ago, working with text data, we had very limited options for what to do with AI. You had natural language processing, you had text classification, sentiment analysis, named entity recognition. Those are all good, but those are not those aren't really great use cases inside the law. For the most part, when you are reviewing legal contracts, for example, you need to be able to highlight issues that could potentially be wrong, um, based on legal playbooks, or you're trying to find more. You're trying to find patterns and nuances inside the text that just was not capable of just using natural language processing alone. So then all of a sudden we got large language models have its zenith in November 2022 with the release of ChatGPT. They've been around for a while. They've kind of been, a lot of open source models have been around, but this one is definitely a game changer. So you could do much more with legal AI side with large language models and a combination of still using some of your conventional natural language processing techniques. So we started there. We said, okay, here's the intersection is in terms of what's the data look like. There's a lot of text data inside the law. But you have to be able to pair it with the legal expertise, the legal domain knowledge. And how do you do that? You can facilitate that using generative AI technologies like large language models. But you have to get creative. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as just uploading a contract to ChatGPT and say, tell me what's wrong with this. I wouldn't recommend anybody do that, but I've seen some people on Twitter say that they have uploaded a contract to ChatGPT and try to highlight some issues. But there's a little bit more to it. You do have to have some legal guidance. You do have to have a legal expert to kind of help guide that AI to do what you want it to do. Because, like you were saying, data privacy, accuracy, those are in the top of the minds of everybody. There's a lack of trust in AI in the nation. In the U.S., I think it was Pew or Ipsos. There was a poll that came out that said only 35% of the U.S. public has trust in AI. So part of it is what they see in the news. They see hallucinations. They see deep fakes. They see AI just coming out with fake news and fake information. So that problem is going to persist in the law if you're going to be having AI trained to kind of look at legal contracts. So you want to put some measures and mitigations and guardrails against that. So we do that. We have a patent pending technology that puts guardrails, and part of that is with the legal domain expert on my side, Jose, who can help with that. And also, we are part of just recently, by the way, this was about we're part of Meta's open loop program. And open loop, it's a combined effort of 38 different companies along with Meta, Accenture, and the whole point of that is to put together, shape AI policy making, and then also shape best practices with regards to red teaming and risk management for AI. Because these things are, I hear from our customers too, like how do you know that the AI is going to spit out an accurate output? So you have to kind of right. This is uncharted territory, right? We had model explainability and model compliance. That's pretty much well established in like banking when they have machine learning models predicting a person's credit worthiness. So they decide they make decisions about whether or not to extend credit to that person. You can't use discriminatory variables. That has been in practice for decades at this point. So now the question is like, what are you doing from a generative AI governance standpoint? So that's part of this open loop, which I am allowed to say we're a part of the program. I just can't disclose what are the companies. There will be a formal policy or report published in September 2024 as part of this. So we're kind of looking at the applications, but also the governance side of this. And I know there was a lot, but it was trying to you had a big question there and about what's the intersection between the law and AI, and also what are the security practices that you could kind of put around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, very cool. And being on a patent, you can. I haven't done that one yet, so kudos to you. Not involved with the open loop program, not yet, at least. One of the interesting things that you said early on, generative AI is really good at some things. It's not good at other things. But being from a law background, like text is king. There's just so much text out there. There's so many legal rulings that you have to know. Every state does things differently. Every nation does things differently. And having a huge amount of data to be able to train any particular AI system on, the more data, usually the better. And you can run into scenarios where you just, if there's not enough data out there, you just can't get anything effective out of it
Hmm.
because there's just, it requires massive amounts of data. So being in the legal tech space, like that's just one thing that I think is sort of inherent to it, that it does, it's just a really easy fit. It's very natural. There's so much text out there that you
Yeah.
can train off of it. Understanding natural language processing, being able to synthesize insights. One of the things that I actually saw a few hours before we recorded this, someone took Amazon's quarterly earnings reports where they say, this is how the company is doing, these are the areas that we're struggling with, and they just said, all right, I'm just going to put the next 10 of these, which is 10 quarters, so 2.5 years, into ChatGPT. I'm going to tell it, all right, this is your training data, sort of. Give me something interesting. Give me some insights out of this. And one of the things that it found was like, oh, about a year ago, 4 quarters ago, they stopped mentioning Amazon Fresh in their reports.
Ah,
Now, that might be something that you and I, we would have had to read these documents. We would have had to scribble notes. That's what I'm doing furiously. I'm
we,
scribbling notes as we're going. And that would be something that a human very easily could have missed. But these kind of tools are good at being able to take large amounts of data and be able to synthesize insights, be able to synthesize knowledge, be able to synthesize things that otherwise might be imperceptible to you and
yeah.
I. So, I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer to use this in the law. I'm honestly surprised more people aren't doing it.
So on that example too, I even forgot about Amazon Fresh.
Yeah.
Without if
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know to look for that. I remember it being in the news, a few years ago, and you just reminded me of that. So if I were looking through those documents myself as a human, I probably would it wouldn't even cross my mind. It's like, hey, this is something you should look out. Now it makes sense, right? You really don't hear about Amazon Fresh too much in the news, and that's interesting. And obviously, what it means is that they've deprioritized investments there, and they're obviously allocating those investments somewhere else. Companies do that all the time, but we didn't know what to look at for that. Um, so I'll share a story on that as well, because generative AI is able to do this, but just AI in general, like machine learning algorithms, is able to find patterns in data that people wouldn't even know where to look. And I'm going back to your traditional machine learning algorithms, regression and classification. Those are still very underrated now. People don't understand that it is still able to synthesize a lot of tabular data. Like you could look at hundreds or thousands of variables and then find something in there that says this variable is predictive of this, and you didn't even know to look at that. And I'll share a story on that. Several years ago, I was at a B2C e-commerce retailer, and they had a direct mail operation. They've since they've obviously wind that down because direct mail is not as popular as it once was. I think they still have a direct mail operation, but for the most part, they were doing most of their marketing on a digital side. With the direct mail operation that they still had, it was a huge cost. There's printing costs, there's mailing costs. So one of the pain points there was, what do we do to help reduce our direct mail volume without it impacting sales? And what the marketers were using were business rules, heuristics. They were saying, okay, we're going to target these customers that spent this much in the past. This was their segmentation. It was pretty much an RFM segmentation. It was, how long ago did they purchase? Or in RFM, recency, frequency, monetary. How long ago did they purchase? How much did they purchase? And did they purchase in the past 15 months, and that sort of thing, or how many purchases they've had? That missed a lot just by using RFM. And we used just your traditional propensity models with classification, like a classification model, say what's the highest propensity responder to our direct mail. We were able to include a lot more variables, hundreds at that point, to find things that humans would not even been able to look. And when we A/B tested that, our models performed better than human-based rules. So not only is AI machine learning able to synthesize more, it's able just to find and look at variables that a human would not even think to look at. And that goes for Chat GPT and generative AI. Although there is lack of trust, I think that lack of trust was predated ChatGPT. That lack of trust was already there with with convincing stakeholders to even use machine learning. And we did have an example where we uploaded a document at LegalMente AI for at a law firm, um, for one of the lawyers there, and our AI did check for something, and it highlighted a potential issue. And her feedback to us was like, "Oh, I would have forgotten to check that." So your AI was able to highlight this thing that I would, just forgot to check on my own. So it's a good reminder. I think this is why I keep saying that AI is not a replacement, but an augmentation. So you can still have your um, your human-based heuristics and rules of thumb and your human intuition. Still employ that because that you still need that, but have the machine augment your review process, have the machine review your decision making, see if it can actually make it better. And that's what the promise of generative AI is just augmenting people's cognitive output.
Hmm. And there's definitely some things that people are good at. Like we are creative by nature. We seem to have this hole in our chest that always propels us towards the accumulation of knowledge and of wealth. But there's some things that we're not good at. Like I, well, I mean, there's some things that make sense. Like I couldn't be a restaurant server. Like that is not the profession for me. There are other things that are just sort of capacity limits. Like there's only so many things that we can keep in our head at one particular time. Whereas these systems, they can have just massive amounts of data, be able to shove it all into the RAM. I can buy a couple more sticks. I can get everything I need to in RAM, be able to, instantly make decisions off of it. But we always do have to be careful. Like in your example where, the lawyer said, oh, that's really good. I would not have initially considered that. You still do need a human sort of at the end of the day to be able to make a judgment call because no matter how smart we think we are, no matter what we accomplish, I mean, we've sent men in a little tin can up to the big ball of cheese in the sky. We've sent people also in a little tin can to the bottom of the oceans, but still, there are things that we just don't do well. And one of the examples that kind of always gives me pause with machine learning is actually a story that I heard about what Target did. So Target is they have massive amounts of data on every single person. Like you walk in that store, it's just track. It tracks all your purchases. It tracks things that you're interested in, and they try to get synthesize insights out of that. Well, there was a story that I heard of a father who called into the customer support line saying, "Hey, I know that you send targeted advertisement books with things that are specific to the person that they're being sent to, things that they might want to buy. Why are you sending diapers? Why are you sending baby cream? Why are you sending cribs advertisements to my 16-year-old daughter?" And they're like, "I'm sorry, sir. Like, I don't know how that happened. Like, we'll correct it." And a week later, the father called back in and apologized. I think he got routed to the same customer support rep. And he was like, "Well, it turns out like my daughter was pregnant and she hadn't told me, but Target was able to know that based on her purchasing history, and they were able to heuristically sort of surmise that there was a high probability that she was pregnant." So I'm curious, at least in like the legal field, some of the things that do give some of those people in the United States pause in that survey you were saying. I think hallucinations are probably one of the biggest things that people are kind of worried about. You can ask ChatGPT, what was the maiden name of the elephant that walked first on the moon? And it'll say, oh, Samuelson was the maiden name of the elephant that first walked on the moon. Now, between you and me, I don't think there has been an elephant that has walked on the moon unless there's some great government conspiracy that I have not come across. But I'm curious at least how you think about hallucinations. Are there things, are there safeguards that need to be put in place? Kind of what's your take on this very particular issue that most people have with ChatGPT?
Yeah, you've definitely hit out a lot of the human in the loop is going to be the most important thing. Even I would not allow a decision making algorithm to work autonomously. There always has to be a human at the end of this one. So I'll kind of let me, I'll get to the answer on hallucinations, but one thing that I wanted to bring about introducing human in the loop from a machine learning standpoint, because I remember that story from Target. Years ago, I built a recommender system for the same e-commerce retailer that I was talking about. And one of the things that it had a problem with was we weren't using things like gender or age as part of this. So you would recommend male product suggestions to female customers. And we got sometimes it would happen, but not often, right? So what would happen is we would get customer calls and customer emails of unhappy female customers who said, "You had suggested this product to me. I'm not a male. Why would you do that to me?" So that was where we had to put some human in the loop guardrails to make sure that we control the output of the AI so it doesn't just make that. So that was one thing, and I think you kind of learn those as the system kind of goes out in the wild a little bit. With LegalMente specifically, though, we always say that the we're not allowed to provide legal advice. It's not what the software is allowed to do. We're not practicing law, but we do say that our opinions may differ with whoever is consuming this one. That we recommend that they contact a licensed attorney. There is a module inside of LegalMente software which does connect to a network of attorneys that we have. Um, our goal really is to reduce the cost of legal, because where our software is actually being resonating is not with lawyers, although there are some lawyers that use it. It's mostly resonating with non-lawyers. Non-lawyers don't want to spend $500, $1,000 an hour on a lawyer to review it. They are looking at lower cost law firms, and they're also looking at AI to see if it can help maybe reduce that cost a little bit. But we do, kind of connect them with cost effective attorneys to have that human in the loop. That's one thing. But what from an AI algorithm perspective, though, we do not allow any of the large language models to just spit out whatever, right? Because this could be just somebody might look at this and be like, oh, you just upload a document and do an API call to ChatGPT and then find out what's wrong with the contract. The risk with that is that you are beholden to whatever that output that ChatGPT says. There's no way to verify its authenticity or anything. So rather, what we do is from a legal side, from Jose's side, from the legal side, is that he's already preparing messages for the AI uh, to spit out. So we are guardrailing what the AI says. We're not just using um, straight up content from an API call from ChatGPT and just putting that as the message. These are all curated messages that Jose, my co-founder, is writing based on his 20 plus years of legal expertise. So that's what we're doing to hallucinate, to mitigate hallucinations. We're basically trying to ensure that the hallucination can't even occur in the first place. So that's sort of what we're doing. But I wish there was more of a standard way to do this. It just comes down to that human in the loop process, the human evaluation. When we look at the output of the generative AI, we look at it and we're in these testing scenarios. What are we going to do to mitigate this and ensure that the user only sees the correct content at first to help improve the trustworthiness of the AI. And since it is not a standardized process, that's why it's important for the human to be in part of the development.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way around it. But what I put out a post on LinkedIn a while back, like what are some quantitative and qualitative ways to mitigate hallucinations? You have some quantitative ways like NLP metrics, like Rouge scores, for example. But Rouge scores is requiring a benchmark to compare it against. In this case, we don't really have a benchmark. Every contract is going to be different. So the other part of it is qualitative studies, like human evaluations, and those have to be more carefully designed. And you should have a good basic statistical foundational knowledge of how to conduct these. Um, at the end of the day, you just have to make sure that human is reviewing the output, that there is an evaluation process for that, and a way to just hopefully reduce that hallucination error to near zero. Unfortunately, algorithms are not going to be perfect. They're always going to get it wrong. Even traditional ML, they're going to deny people they're going to deny people credit, and that still happens. These algorithms cannot be 100% accurate. They could be denying somebody to use for a credit card, even though they have a very high propensity to pay that back. So that stuff is just going to happen. You can't get it to zero, but you can get it to near zero.
Mhm. No, and I think that's one of the nuances that is sometimes lacking when we talk about this. It's a relatively new tool that's sort of entered the zeitgeist, like you were saying, in probably December 2022. I think January 2023 is when I think I first showed it to my kids, and they're like, "Oh, have it pretend to be Taylor Swift and write a song." I think it was actually they asked me to do that, and he was in it was during the NFL season about how she loved Travis Kelsey, and like they were just like dying on the floor laughing because of how like funny it was that it was this really cool technology that we had just as human beings we had never really come across before, at least in the general public. So I'm curious, as a dilettante on this subject. I don't have a ton of background in statistics. I mean, I did pass statistics in college, but between you and me and the internet, I don't remember much of anything from it. My teacher was great. He was a great guy. Just it didn't stick for whatever reason. I'm curious what resources you would recommend to me, to the audience, if we wanted to get into this, if we wanted to start learning more. Are there any policies that we should have, or maybe more existential, any philosophies that we should go into this with?
Oh, that's a good question. Now, from a statistics standpoint, knowing they call it design of experiments is basically the term. You can get that from any statistical process quality book. So there's a used to be big in the days, and not so much anymore. I don't know why. It's sort of like a lost art, but Six Sigma used to be pretty big, and they would run design, experiments on the manufacturing floor, very meticulously, and ensuring that there's no confounding factors. For example, that they're testing one thing at a time. In marketing, they kind of call it A/B testing and multivariate testing. Um, I think just knowing how to design an experiment, because they're not the American Society for Quality could teach you how to design experiments from a manufacturing standpoint. Um, but if you learn those basics, that you could still apply those same the same experimental design processes in generative AI, in machine learning. And I don't think people know to look there. So I would recommend that they have been the best teachers of this in my view.
Okay.
Um, in terms of philosophies, I have another startup that I've had for a while. It's like a membership, where I try to teach some immutable concepts that have withstood the test of time. Um, Things that not just that I've learned the past 14 years, because I don't want to have that amount of hubris to say because it's worked for me in the past 14 years, it's going to work for you. More or less, what are some teachings that have lasted for centuries or at least decades, right? And one of them is, and it may be a little bit cliche, but there's a reason why it's cliche, is because it works. Is Occam's razor. I mean, it was first introduced in 14th century by Franciscan theologian William of Ockham, and it's not. Most people construe that as keep it simple, stupid, right? They synonymize Occam's razor with keep it simple, stupid, but it's not actually the same thing. It's what he says is plurality should not be posited without necessity, meaning that if you have two competing hypotheses, and they both basically have the same outcome, you want to go with the hypothesis which has the simpler explanation. So in I think a lot of what's happening in generative AI and AI in specific is engineers love to engineer, so they over engineer something. And because of that over engineering, you can never find out, it's hard to debug. You can't find out what are the confounding factors. The architecture kind of breaks and nobody kind of knows why. So if you can kind of say a simple architecture would have same or just marginally less efficacy, you could probably go with a simpler architecture. And that's the same thing here when it comes to human evaluation studies. If you give it to a committee, 20 people in that committee, you're going to run into the Ringleman effect where everybody's got their idea. And next thing you know, the design of that experiment becomes so complicated, nobody really knows what's happening there. So if you can kind of if you use that framework of Occam's razor when it comes to evaluating these, you can eliminate the confounding factors faster. You have clearer, more explainable results of these human evaluation qualitative studies, so to speak. So that's where I would kind of, those two concepts would, design of experiments, and then use a Occam's razor or principal parsimony approach to employing this.
I dig it. That's the Riggleman effect. You've given me some homework. I know the Rashomon effect. Don't know the Riggleman effect. And I hope one day, 600 years in the future, people call me, my name of what town I'm born in, Zach of Lawrence.
Yeah.
It sounds so badass, like it's much
Zach
cooler
of
than the
Kansas
actual
City.
person. Yeah,
Yeah,
Zach.
yeah.
Or Zach the Snack, as some people call me. I always like to have
Yeah,
fun.
yeah,
So
yeah. Just because Vlad the Impaler, he had that nickname, that moniker. So Zach the Snack is the going to be the moniker for you in 100 years from now.
it's also bad too. That's actually what I changed my name on my little Netflix profile icon to. So it just says the snack. So all right, we've gotten way off topic. We've covered a lot of ground, Douglas. Thank you so much for your time. I've learned a lot. This has been really insightful. Thank you very much.
No, I had a good time talking here, Zach. Love chatting with you. You make it very easy. So I'm definitely going to check out all your other podcasts as well, because I'm sure it's just as compelling and as insightful that with all the other people that you bring in. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. And, check it out on any platform you can. LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Pretty much the only social network we're not on, MySpace. I don't know. I don't know what happened with MySpace.
You're missing out. You're missing out. I heard it's popping over
Yeah,
there.
that's
I'm just
where the
kidding.
party's at, as my friends would say in college. So, but no, this has been real, Douglas. And ladies and gentlemen, hope you've had as good of a time as I had. We'll catch you in the future.